Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Wales of Wall Street. We have an XDC video here for you guys today. And in fact, it's part of a major series really that I'm putting together over the next few days and weeks relating to the TFDi event that I was at last week in Hertfordshire. Absolutely privileged to have gone to that event and met so many amazing people. Obviously the likes of Sunil were there, the CEO of XDC. It was incredible to talk to him a bit more about the trade network side of things of XDC, which we'll talk about in more detail in a second, because this market is huge, guys. And I've got some really interesting pointers to bring to the table here. And it's not just XDC, of course, that can be related to trade finance, and particularly solutions or technological solutions that are available to the trade finance markets. But also the learnings from last week that was absolutely mind-blowing, really, to kind of branch out the ideology behind what are the abilities basically in the trade finance area. Just looking at things like insurance, risk management, these are areas that I didn't really consider. And yeah, sometimes you can't associate specific blockchains or anything like that relating to some of these areas, but what you can do is for sure understand how some of these blockchain projects can facilitate some of these areas, and especially when huge institutional level of growth is occurring right now, and their adoption of trade finance markets. We'll go into a bit more detail about that, and for sure we will cover that in some of the TFDi report videos that I'll be doing over these coming days as well. It's absolutely fascinating. Hopefully I haven't missed anything. I've probably got about, I'm not even joking, 50 odd pages of notes from that conference. Loads of different speakers and talkers, but I'm focusing on XDC, particularly on this video. Obviously there's been a bit of traction in the market, and we'll look at the XDC price in the chart for sure, but I just wanted to reiterate the points as to why I'm interested in XDC, and certainly from them as a solution partner to the trade finance markets as well. So before we do that, don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel, guys. There's loads of different topics and discussions always going on. A few interviews scattered here and there. We've got loads of interviews lined up with actually the likes of TradeTech, XDC. Got a couple of people coming from Alliance, which would be awesome, and Lloyd's as well, talking about their trade finance aspects and blockchain integrations. And there's many more as well. So I'm really excited to see that development and that networking opportunity that occurred last week. And of course, if you haven't done so already, please do smash that subscribe button and massively help us get that audience level up further. We're on 11,000 now. Can you believe it? How fast this has been going. And for sure, venturing towards the 20,000, who knows? Maybe we'll get there before the end of the year. It's a long task. But that aside, guys, thank you so much for the support. Let's get straight into this one. So more recently, XDC released the XDC Trade Network arm of its solution basis. And arguably what they define as the one-stop solution for trade document digitalization and liquidity for trades. Now, we know that XDC does a lot of services towards the likes of TradeTech as a platform. TradeTech is absolutely phenomenal. They actually did a demo last week, and it was unbelievable. Pretty much every bank that was at this event, more representative of a bank, or indeed the companies that were there, were all using TradeTech as a platform, which is absolutely phenomenal. So XDC's orientation around that is absolutely brilliant to see. But it was the trade networking aspect, the ability to utilize now, based especially here in the UK under law, the ability to use digitalized assets in terms of smart contracts, deliverable of information, KYC, documentation in general, and the speed up process of this. And I thought it was absolutely staggering. There's another video that we will do around insurance, which I could not believe the numbers within this industry, but a bit of perspective about the market value, guys, of the trade market. Okay, so trade finance covers, from the words, the financial aspects of trade, and this can be a form of like promissory notes, the liquidity of things, the risk management aspect of it. That promissory note, by the way, being kind of like the act of someone promising that they will pay for something, whether it's merchandise, a product, or a supply chain mechanism, logistics, etc. And all these things can sometimes take a lot of time. And it was always a question, actually. Someone asked in a comment a few weeks back about well, what's the difference? Like, I think it was Lloyd's, basically through Enisio, which is another similar aspect of this XDC trade network, where they can provide digitalization, tokenization of documents that can be shared quickly and easily, signed back and forth. Obviously, the validation and processing via blockchain, the speed at which it can be done, speeds things up. And it was with Matalan, that particular case study, where they reduced it significantly, the time-wise, to just like 48 hours, when it usually took a few weeks. And people were like, well, why does that matter? And I was trying to explain at the time, perhaps now that I learned a lot more about it over these coming weeks, or these last few weeks, that actually it makes a big difference, because from a creditor and debitor's perspective, a lot of companies have maybe, I don't know, 14-day, 30-day, sometimes 90-day leeway in terms of payments. And a lot of that isn't just because they want to, well, sometimes it's to balance books, of course, but a lot of the time it's because of resource. And it's sometimes with lack of resource and people having to stay behind longer. So there's a lot of colleagues' well-being involved in this, and Claudia from Lloyd's actually made a really good point about that, which we'll cover in another video as well. But there's orientation around that, and just the delays of if you've got, imagine how many transactions you're processing, especially if you're at that logistical level, or you're buying and selling produce or materials or whatever it might be on a daily basis and a regular basis throughout the whole entire day. You don't have the time sometimes, even how big or small your team is, to accommodate these documents, these payments, passing them on to finance, getting them checked over, reconciled, audited, etc. So you can start seeing a bit more of how blockchain can play its major part in this area. But that bringing down to 2 days means that when that's processed, validated, and paid within that short period of time, you've cleared the balance book, you cleared your credit to be able to go and buy more quicker. And of course, that credit rating aspect builds even faster. Credit rating, again, is another complete crazy topic that I learned more and more about in the trade and finance sphere. Absolutely incredible. And I thought, okay, that's really interesting. That's one retail example. An XDC network, or the trade arm of this, can accommodate this quite significantly as well. So what we can start seeing is more liquidity coming into areas of the economy, into areas of companies that are involved in this entire mechanism of trade, and more importantly, the aspect of cross-border and interoperability aspects too. Now, TFDi is doing a huge job to try and bridge and network more and more companies and banking institutions, insurance companies, etc., risk management, asset management, together under this new framework of ways to work. Sarah Green was at this event. She's the law and commissioning person, for a better word, in the UK government, and was heavily involved in the regulation aspects of the ETTA, so the Electronic Trade Distribution Act, and other things that are going through right now in terms of the passing of law around digital currencies and cryptocurrencies in general. And these were huge areas of interest because the UK is looked at around the world as a prominent figure in both finance, but also standardization of things. And I think it was something crazy, and I may be wrong. I'll probably do this more updated in the next video, but it was around the late 1800s was the last time a law around this factor was even looked at. And the fact that it's now going into digitalized format means that no one has to skim anything anymore. It can literally just be law that actually, legally, when we're moving from paper to data, which was a terminology I picked up the other day, as a philosophy, that this is now law abiding and it's concrete by law. And the rest of the world will look at this. They will have to speed their processes up to get on board with this kind of philosophy as well and framework. And they utilize this in the sense that, okay, the UK is doing this, it must be a really good thing. And ultimately trade can move a lot faster. I think even back in the 1600s, UK was always looked at from a trade hub in the world, and it still is today, despite many others producing perhaps more than we do, but we tend to facilitate a lot of it in general. So there's a lot going on here. And when we look at the power of Xinfin, Sunil made a great point that, yeah, okay, it's EVM compatible, it still utilizes Ethereum in certain aspects of it. Layer 1 blockchain of XDC is arguably way ahead of Ethereum in technological purposes, and a lot of chains are, to be honest. There's a lot of skewed data out there that would give biased opinions and biased data that actually Ethereum is way slow. It's very expensive. There's reasons behind that, but it's also got a huge security grade level to it. But more chains, more than ever before, are catching up to that fact. And when you look at the transactions per second, the ability to validate things within their hybrid blockchain system, way back a few years back when they mentioned this, the public domain and the private domain can be covered by XDC network as a whole, or a foundation. And when we look at the trade finance deals and the integration that they've already got with the likes of TradeTech, with the likes of bridging with these new banking facilities and infrastructures and institutional levels, becomes very apparent. And at events and the conferences like I was at last week, there's no doubt in my mind that these next few years are going to be very exciting for XDC as it bridges more and more enterprise partners into the ecosystem, but more importantly, provides even more sufficient solutions in the global trade finance area. I'm just going to throw some interesting information here, guys. The trade market globally, this is mad. So pre-COVID was around $6 trillion market value. And the trade market globally now, as it stands, is around circa $25 trillion. Now, there's so many variables behind this. Of course, since 2020, habits have changed, supply chain has changed, business has changed. And we enter a phase essentially of digitalization with the unique and world-changing acts such as the recent Electronic Trade Distribution Act, or a lot of people TFDi, for those that don't know the abbreviation. And of course, the integration, which we talk about so much on this channel, of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. I have a huge background in both these areas in my working life. Internet of Things, pretty much everything connected to the internet, but from a trade aspect and certainly supply chain aspect, this is really interesting because you're looking at chipsets or software built in within packaging or materials to understand damage or where it is in the world. And unbelievably, guys, when I do this insurance video relating to blockchain and technology, it really wakes this market up. It's absolutely staggering the amount of money involved in blockchain utilization of insurance. And I didn't really comprehend this, but of course IoT, with that ability of smart tracking and AI algorithm, real data, to have real-time insurance programmability, unbelievable. It's another kettle of fish, and it's super exciting to talk about all the time. But the other element other than AI and IoT is of course blockchain. So from the UK's perspective, of course, this is massive. Now with the legislative perspective, it's looking solid. It's looking solid worldwide, and they're all looking at us now here in the UK, defining these frameworks. Expect the world to follow, in my opinion, to essentially follow swiftly and adhere to this mentality and framework. Albeit, guys, there's still a lot of work to do in regards to the global standardization and interoperability aspects of this as well. But of course, by 2030, this is a huge target area. So it's 2050, of course, with their huge goals of sustainability and things. But the 2030 global trade market, guys, will accelerate way past that $30 trillion mark. And that's just global trade as a whole. I mean, trade finance in its own right is absolutely significant as well. And what was really interesting was the companies that were involved in this event. For example, Goldman Sachs were there. So Suresh from Goldman Sachs was talking significantly that actually trade finance as a market area wasn't really of interest from them. I mean, it was on the radar, of course, and it was still being developed. But when 2020 hit and behavioral patterns changed, all these things changed, it became an opportunity for them. And this is where they saw a real massive opportunity for whole capital market and investment areas as well, to be really harnessed. And investor and asset managers overall looking at alternative market and areas in general too. So you've got all these different arms, guys. And it wasn't something that I comprehended in my head until I started listening to these people and going, the dot connecting here. This is what makes the market really exciting in this area. It's not just about document and trade documents and things. It's the whole mechanism. And how do you power all this? How do you manage it? How do people use platforms to this? And how do we validate, process? How do we formulate transactions and KYC and smart contract data to know who we're dealing with? Full information integrated real time. So instead of spending weeks investigating or trying to research companies or who we're partnering with, what we're working with, what's this, what's that, blockchain does this all within milliseconds. And it really opens up the opportunity to enhance and accelerate this massive market. So when we loop this back to XDC, it really becomes definitive here, because we've got the interoperability of the ML-ETR aspects as well, the huge frameworks there, and this is absolutely big, huge part of the solution basis moving forward as well. But in general, these kind of like difficulties, these barriers previously around utilizing digitalization of trade documents, it simply wasn't law abiding. It just had too many open doors. It was too open. But now with this recognition, the possibility of processing electronic documents becomes absolutely significantly intangible, in terms of this aspect of law being coming in to recognize this as an area of interest. And so, yes, the XDC price, which we'll go into in a minute, is still low. And people say, well, if this is such a big market and big companies already involved with XDC's bridging capabilities and interoperability of their solutions, why is the price not high? Well, that's because, guys, this law in particular in the UK only came out a couple of months ago by Royal Assent. Now, and this is specifically why the TFDi is heavily involved as well, is the huge educational piece on so many different levels. Can you imagine how many SMEs there are, not just here in the UK, but worldwide? Small businesses, large business enterprises, and then you've got institutional level. And it's amazing still, at that institutional level, even from the insurance arms, whatever, are still not fully integrated or understanding of how all this can work and why it would benefit them. And this is where it becomes really, really exciting as we move forward with it as well. And in fact, there was just even like crazy statistical numbers that were coming out of some of these conference sessions as well, about how much money can be saved, which, to be honest, I think any company would welcome with open arms, the ability to reduce cost and improve their bottom line, and also improve the efficiency in terms of the speed at which everything can be done. It's absolutely incredible opportunity here, in my opinion. But yeah, for sure, education is a huge part of this, and that in my opinion is one of the biggest reasons why a lot of chains or companies involved in the Web3 or crypto space haven't accelerated as much yet. Of course, the market in general is still in a winter bear market, arguably. That is definitely playing its part, but from a utility perspective, there are some projects out there, asset classes out there, that will not be moving just yet because they're not fully utilized and integrated. But when this switches on, guys, absolutely incredible. And you think about like the ESG goals, quite interestingly, from the digitalization of documents as a prime example, the reduction in paper, something crazy like 28.5 billion pieces of paper or something is used a year. It might even be more than that. We can eradicate that. So there's a huge sustainability goal there. And then just the speed up process of everything as well. No more people waiting around at late hours of the night trying to wait for deals and things to go through, or paper documents to be processed and analyzed and put into systems. The administrative level of things and reconciliation from the finance levels is absolutely extortionate. And there is an argument to say, of course, over the next 5 to 10 years, particularly, AI taking over a lot of our jobs. And yes, of course, that can definitely seep through majority of businesses worldwide and at different levels as time goes by. But from an investor's perspective, yes, of course, we all want everyone to have jobs, but ultimately as well, from an investment perspective, you see the opportunity here. It's absolutely gigantic when we look at these different areas of trade finance. So for me personally, I'm super excited about XDC, and particularly the XDC Trade Network Solutions. I think this is a huge area of interest, and if it's not something you've looked at before, or you've perhaps been holding XDC for other reasons, but now have a look at this, guys. And all I can do and say is implore you guys out there to just do as much research as you can about trade finance market. It is absolutely gigantic, humongous. So let's keep an eye on this, guys, for sure. There's so much to talk about in this area in particular, but XDC will be doing a huge area of coverage around the trade network markets, and for sure it's going to enhance the way we do business worldwide at whatever level you're at, and that's why I'm excited as an XDC holder. So I don't want to rumble on too much about this. I just want to give you a top line kind of conversation around this because it's absolutely exciting. But let's talk about the price point quickly of XDC in the markets. As I said, I will have more videos coming out this week, very heavily focused on specific companies' involvements with blockchain integration, insurance side of things, risk management side of things, and where blockchain sits in this, not just for XDC, but across the board, and where the market gaps are in the years to come. Because this is almost an untapped area, guys, of significance, in my opinion, to be really excited about. In fact, I was reading the other day, I don't know if this, I need to really just confirm this is true, but just in insurance, guys, before going to chart, the global market for blockchain insurance, okay, so the utilization of blockchain insurance worldwide, is an estimated $2.9 billion last year. 2.9 billion, pretty decent, right? By 2030, they believe it will be $273.8 billion, 76% or 76.7% CAGR or growth pattern within that period of time. So for me personally, I'm looking as much as possible, not just in crypto, but in stock markets as well, of areas of interest in trade finance, and particularly these other arms of trade finance as well. It's absolutely huge, and it really paints a picture of where XDC can really get his fingers in the pies, as it were, as the saying goes. Guys, the current price point of XDC is around 4.9 cents as of recording. So we had a bit of an uptake the last 48 hours, of course, taking it from this sort of 4.5 cent mark, touching on the veers of 5 cents. In fact, I think the high yesterday of 0.049, and then this morning a high of, it literally went just slightly over that 5 cent, but we have a bit of a retracement so far. I do anticipate us to potentially bubble back down to at least that 4.7 retest, or 0.47, sorry. I'll get it right in a minute. 0.047. Don't want to confuse people that we're already at 40 odd cents. But my point with this particularly, which I've drawn in many times in previous videos, and I've left them here always, is we're on this really defining area of interest, in my opinion, on the price perspective. So anything, in my opinion, at the moment between that sort of 4 cent and 5 cent marker is of great interest to me personally. Yes, we had these lower regions around 1.8 cents back here in December 2022, and more recently lowers in July back here at 3.2 cents. We obviously had the XDC announcements back around that sort of July-August period, and then a bit of a filtration down. And I did say that we would see some lower areas, and those are the circles that I drew in ages ago. People were telling me, you're talking nonsense, it's not going to come back down. But hey ho, here we go. So I've left those in there. My buy orders have been fantastic so far, which is great for me personally to see these areas come in and take those automated limit orders. I do anticipate potentially still to have a retest at some point of these even lower regions. They may or may not come in, but for sure, if history repeats itself and historic data points in the fib retracement charts and just generalization of XDC's price points in history, it should in theory indicate that we would eventually come back down to these areas. However, some things are slightly different from a few years back, like they are with Bitcoin and every other market trend at the moment in crypto, is that we're at different levels of mass adoption. We're at different levels of awareness. It's still not nowhere near where it should be. There's still an argument to say that around about 1 or 2% are invested or know of crypto worldwide. I don't know if that statistic is still real and relevant in 2023, but that's what it was over the last year or two. I don't think it's too far off, but when utility comes in and all these things become reality, people will question more and more as how it works, where can I put my money, ETFs will roll out, the opportunities for hedge funds in crypto and things like this, giving extra and more ability of access to the ability to invest crypto assets in short and long-term periods. It's going to be really exciting. So there's my defined spots, really, price point wise, of potential accumulation areas at lower regions to what we are today. But not just particularly today, but I think over the next few days I'd be really interested to see where this stabilizes. And I have been doing manual purchases around this sort of 4.5 4.6 cent mark as well. I'm just trying to accumulate as much XDC as possible. I'm going to try and find an up-to-date whale chart as well, because I used to love looking at that, see what kind of fish you are based on how much XDC you hold. And I think I was like a minion or something a year or two ago. So I'll be interested to see where I sit now, as more and more people are becoming aware of the power of XDC and the excitement behind it. But in terms of like where XDC can go, price point wise, of course, we saw the previous all-time high around 20 cents. In previous videos, we've looked at these particular areas of interest in the next bull runs as a minimum. I think if utility comes in, which I don't really see full utilization, probably nearer towards that 2030 in my opinion. But in the next bull cycle, 2024/2025, that's what I believe. I definitely think we could reach that 30 cent mark. And I definitely believe that we could get towards that 50 cent mark as well. And to be honest, just from the perspective of where we are today, and just getting to even that line of area of 50 cents is quite significant. Taking it from the current price point all the way up to there, it's a good 800%. And I think that's fairly realistic in a bull cycle as a minimum. I mean, there's other lines of retracement opportunities at the higher end. Some people argue that if we do have an acceleration and excitement around XDC over the next 2 years, and proper integrations, we could hit those 87 cents or even $1 mark. We'll have to see. But they're my target areas, and certainly my first profit taking area will definitely be that previous all-time high. You're going to see a lot of volatility around that area when it comes around, and certainly at these areas as well. I'm not really massively personally interested in macro levels or micro levels in between those. I'm just looking at the defined areas, and I will definitely be keeping a huge portfolio back in my XDC holdings for those dollar marks and beyond. When we eventually get there, who knows when that will happen. A couple of other pointers quickly. RSI on the bottom left here, just to kind of prove my point that I'm not fussed about the next day or two. Just going to see some stability. RSI is a middle ground. 14 days showing 52, 28 days showing 48. So for me personally, it's still middle ground. I'd like to see those back at around the 40, 42 mark. And the indicators on the right hand side here, performance-wise, it's not doing too bad on the weekly. I think the 3-month and the 1 month is still slightly skewed from that uptake that we saw back in August and September respectively. So I do anticipate that probably to drive down slightly more into a negative or a further negative fashion as time goes by. The weekly I was a bit disappointed with. I think that could have been a bit stronger based on other market activities, but I'm kind of happy in the way that I can accumulate more at lower prices. That's how I see it anyway. And the longer term performance indicators are just showing good strength in general. I think that's just showing overall stability and confidence in XDC. A lot more people are just holding it rather than just selling it off, which is great to see. And I think that will bear good fruiting, as it were, in the years to come as this bull cycle does swing around, hopefully in the next year or two. So guys, that kind of wraps up XDC and a bit of a topic around digitalization of documents and where XDC can be sitting in with this as they really push forward with their solution basis in this particular market, a giant market. And I really hope that you guys do a bit more research yourselves as well to understand this market even further in the trade finance world. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you in the next XDC update video. Take care. Bye-bye.